Discipline is not a natural gift, nor is it a trait you're simply born with. It is a weapon forged and hardened through daily resistance. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they lose the fire to keep going once the initial desire fades. The Stoics understood this truth. They didn't wait for motivation, and they didn't glamorize the easy way. Instead, they embraced hardship as the crucible that would shape them into something unshakable. What truly separates those who thrive from those who collapse isn't brilliance, it's the ability to say no to the weaker self, that inner voice that whispers, stay in bed. Quit early. Take the excuse. Discipline isn't the absence of that voice. It's the relentless choice to act against it. To live as a Stoic is to declare war on passivity. It is waking each morning with the reminder no one is coming to save you. No one will hold you accountable but you. Your future is not built on chance. It is built on choice. The Stoic doesn't just hope for strength. They train it. They practice discomfort. They make peace with boredom. They anchor themselves in steady habits so that when the storm comes, they do not move. This is not about flashy living. It's about something real, raw, and relentless. The kind of life that demands something of you, but gives everything back in return. And it begins here. Start where you least want to. The hardest part is the beginning, not because the task is impossible, but because inertia chains you to comfort, delay, and self-doubt. It whispers that tomorrow will be better, that the perfect moment is just around the corner. But the Stoic does not wait. They do not seek signs. They do not consult the winds of emotion. They move. They begin even when it feels awkward, wrong, or painful. Especially then. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." He did not say to wait until you feel ready. He spoke of duty. The morning is not for luxury, it is for action. And discipline begins right there in the cold air, in aching limbs, in the fog of resistance that only clears through movement. Waking when you don't want to, working when no one is watching, writing when the words won't come, training when the body resists, reflecting when the mind wants to escape. These are not chores, they are tests, sacred proving grounds, where the Stoic sharpens commitment. The resistance you feel is not the enemy, it is the gatekeeper. And by walking through it, you step into mastery. By stepping into discomfort, you step into mastery. The Stoic understands that every time you avoid difficulty, you strengthen weakness. Delay makes the trial larger in your mind, turning it into a distorted monster. Avoidance trains your brain to see discomfort as danger, when in reality, discomfort is the forge where transformation takes place. It burns away illusion and sharpens clarity. The disciplined individual knows discomfort is not the enemy, it is the doorway. Each hesitation costs more than time, it erodes identity. Every pause teaches your spirit to surrender when it should rise. But when you choose the thing you least want to do, you sharpen your will against resistance, and you learn to move with certainty, even in uncertainty. You build your backbone, your compass, your ability to stand when others collapse. You are not here to be entertained. You are here to become principled, enduring, and dangerous to every excuse that once ruled your life. To begin where you don't want to is to draw a line in the sand. It is to step forward when everything inside of you begs to turn back. It is to look discomfort in the eye and say, I will not be ruled by preference. I will not live on the terms of comfort. This is spiritual rebellion, a declaration of inner authority, a refusal to be seduced by ease. It is the choice to remain a fixed point in a spinning world, to live not by the chaos outside, but by the strength you've built inside. That is not just discipline, it is liberation. Liberation from reaction, from indulgence, from surrender. And the truth is, it doesn't take a grand gesture. It takes courage in the smallest of moments. The first action may be nothing more than a breath, a step, a single push. But that small act contains everything. You move not because you feel like it, but because it is right. Because hesitation corrodes identity. Because delay is self-betrayal. Because every moment of inaction gives your power away. Each time you begin where you don't want to, you build a life not founded on ease, but on purpose. Not built on fleeting feelings, but on character. And that character becomes your fortress. Strength is not formed in moments of glory, but in the quiet refusals. Not when it's easy, but when it's essential. Not when the world cheers, but when no one is watching and you act anyway. The greatest enemy you will ever face does not live outside, it lives within. Discipline is not a war against the world, but a constant battle inside yourself. The true fight is not against noise, distractions, or temptations out there, but against the inner whispers of laziness, comfort, and compromise. External temptations only succeed if they find a weakness already living inside you. They only win when the gates of your mind are left unguarded. That is why the Stoic begins inward waging war in silence and solitude in the deepest recesses of the self. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And mastery is never built in a single moment of victory. It is forged through relentless command over thought, impulse, and emotion. The real enemy is not the temptation, but the part of you that wavers before it. The self that whispers just this once. The voice that dresses quitting in comforting words, that wraps surrender in seductive logic. It does not shout, it persuades. This is why the Stoic watches the mind like a guard at the gate. Every thought is treated like a seed, because left unchecked, it can grow into something destructive. Desires are not indulged blindly, but questioned. Does this align with my values? Patterns of procrastination, impulses, and hidden fears are tracked with precision. Lies are confronted without mercy. No excuses are allowed to linger in the shadows. The inner life becomes a battlefield of self-scrutiny, and the Stoic stands in the middle of that war, unblinking. Every emotion is interrogated. Where did you come from? What are you trying to protect? Are you rooted in truth or in fear? Every excuse is put on trial. Comfort is never enough. It must pass the test of reason and virtue. Over time, the Stoic becomes fluent in their own psychological landscape, recognizing every trap, every false shortcut, every old deception that once fooled them. What once tempted them becomes powerless. And when the weaker self speaks, it doesn't matter today. I'll start tomorrow. I deserve a break. The Stoic does not argue. They act. They do not indulge in inner negotiations. They do not bargain with weakness. They do not allow comfort to take the lead. They cut the pattern before it becomes a habit. They choose action over analysis, truth over indulgence, principle over excuses, because they know one concession can turn into a trend, and a trend can shape a lifetime. This is how discipline is protected, by refusing to let a single moment of weakness become the direction of your life. True discipline is not about punishment. It is about clarity, self-respect, and living by principles that do not bend with emotion. The Stoic builds momentum by standing firm in the storm of their feelings and declaring, "This is the path. I will walk it regardless. It is self-governance in its purest form, the decision that values, not moods, dictate behavior. Identity, not fleeting emotion, shapes each step forward. This is why the Stoic creates standards so deeply etched into their character that they do not waver when fatigue whispers or when temptation shines. They make decisions long before the moment of weakness arrives. So when the test comes, their response is already forged in clarity. While others glorify shortcuts, comfort, or the easy win, the Stoic chooses the earned road. They see that cutting corners robs integrity, withers potential, and erodes character. The world may envy the shortcut, but in truth, it envies the quiet consistency that cannot be bought. When the mind says later, the Stoic code answers now. When the day darkens, when doubt seduces, when the path narrows, the Stoic stands rooted because their commitment was made long ago and cannot be undone by temporary feelings. Commitment is not measured by how you feel, it is proven by what you do, despite how you feel. Emotions are like weather, shifting, unpredictable, but vision is like the landscape, unchanging, steady, and true. The Stoic does not justify effort by reward. Effort itself is the reward. They become a consistent force in an inconsistent world, a person whose word matters, even if no one else ever hears it. They show up in silence, lay each stone of discipline, and refuse to abandon their path when it is no longer glamorous. Because every refusal to quit becomes the pillar of a character no adversity can shake. That refusal is not only strength, it is freedom. Discipline is born from defiance, the Stoics' refusal to be ruled by fear, impulse, or weakness. It is not about being immune to storms, but about walking through them with unshaken courage. This quiet rebellion builds empires within, not by conquering others, but by conquering the self. Word by word, deed by deed, habit by habit, the Stoic reclaims authorship of their life, choosing responsibility over ease and principle over pleasure. From this emerges a sovereign mind, anchored, tested, true, a life disciplined, dignified, and impossible to break because it rests on virtue alone. Routine is the fortress that protects this inner empire. A disciplined life is not dramatic. It is structured, predictable, steady. The Stoic does not chase novelty. They build stability, knowing stability is the soil in which mastery grows. Each repeated action, waking early, reflecting daily, exercising the body, reading the masters, writing, meditating, becomes a stone in this fortress. These rituals are not rigid chains, but daily offerings, proof that actions are anchored in values. Over time, repetition carves character, and each act of devotion adds weight to identity. From the outside, these practices may appear simple, but to the Stoic, they are sacred. This is their temple, their workshop, their sanctuary of discipline. Behind each act lies a vow to endure, to improve, to transcend. As Seneca reminded us, nothing is better proof of a well-ordered mind than a man's ability to stop where he is and spend time in his own company. That peace comes from order and order comes from discipline. In silence, the Stoic does not feel emptiness but fullness. Stillness becomes nourishment, quiet becomes strength, and discipline becomes freedom. True solitude is not an escape. It is a mirror, a place to remain whole within yourself. The Stoic knows that willpower alone is never enough. It is fleeting, easily exhausted, and too fragile to carry the weight of a disciplined life. That is why they design their days with intention, creating a structure where each moment flows into the next. They do not leave their progress to chance. They anticipate weakness before it strikes, simplify their environment, and eliminate unnecessary choices. So the path of discipline becomes the default, not the exception. This is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the engineering of discipline into the very architecture of daily life. Inspiration may spark, but systems are the firewood that keep the flame alive. Routine becomes a safeguard against chaos. Each habit, each ritual, each choice is a visible expression of values etched not in theory, but in time, in space, in rhythm. Wake at the same time each morning, not when it is easy, but when it is right. Let your labor become ritual, your evenings a sanctuary for reflection. Train your body not for vanity, but as a mirror of your mental strength. Eat with presence, speak with clarity, walk with intent, because every act is an echo of your values. When life moves with this cadence, discipline ceases to be reactive. It becomes a symphony mornings, as the overture purposeful action, as the body reflection, as the closing refrain. Over time, the line between action and identity disappears. Discipline is no longer a choice, but your very nature. Your structure speaks louder than your feelings. It tells the world and yourself, this is who I am. No matter what I feel today, this is my discipline. Discipline is not a single choice. It is a design repeated until it becomes permanent. Within that rhythm lies a power that outlasts failure, disappointment, and distraction. It is a strength untouched by shifting emotions or fading recognition. In that order, you find peace. Not a fragile peace, but one forged in silence, a confidence rooted so deeply that no chaos can reach it. When the storms of life rage, when temptations shout, when weakness rises, your structure remains. It does not bend. It does not ask for permission. It stands with quiet authority, a citadel of the self you've built through repetition anchored in clarity and purpose. And the Stoics knew that this fortress of character is not built in comfort. Comfort is a slow death. That is why they chose voluntary hardship. They stepped into discomfort, not to show off, but to stay sharp, to stay honest, to stay ready. They knew ease dulls the edge of willpower, and complacency blinds us to our true potential. Musonius Rufus once taught, if you desire to be good, begin by believing you are wicked. At first, it sounds harsh, but it's a warning. Do not trust the voice that says you've earned the right to relax. That voice robs you of strength, convincing you that effort is optional. Voluntary hardship takes many forms: cold showers, fasting, silence, long walks, exercise, turning down luxuries, or speaking when fear grips your throat. These are not punishments. They are training grounds. Each act reminds you that the body serves the mind, and the mind must be tempered like steel. They sharpen your focus, wake you from the haze of ease, and condition your spirit to remain calm under pressure. They build tolerance to discomfort and inoculate you against the panic of change. This is the discipline of the Stoic, to step willingly into what is hard so that when life demands more of you, you are already prepared. Discipline is not about waiting for applause. It's about training yourself to endure, to resist, and to rise without needing recognition. The Stoic understands that comfort weakens the will while struggle forges character. Each time you choose hardship over ease, you remind yourself that you are not here for comfort, you are here for growth. You prove again and again that your peace is not fragile, your willpower does not vanish in fatigue, and your character is not shallow like a passing craving. It runs deeper, built on foundations that hardship alone can reveal. When you embrace discomfort, chaos no longer steals your clarity. Exhaustion no longer dims your purpose. Crisis stops being a threat and instead becomes the stage where your true identity is revealed. By choosing voluntary struggle, you train for life's involuntary trials. Pain becomes a familiar conversation. Discomfort becomes an ally. Challenge becomes a territory you already know. Like a house built on stone, you do not shake when the ground trembles. The modern world seduces us into softness, constant entertainment, endless scrolling, the pursuit of easy pleasures. It lures us into digital sedation, trading depth for distraction. But comfort without purpose is nothing more than a cage with silk walls. The Stoic sees this trap clearly. What weakens you often feels good at first, and what strengthens you rarely does. That is why they look at hardship and say, "You will not break me, you will make me." In choosing discomfort, you choose strength that no one can give and no one can take away. This strength is not situational, it is self-created. It thrives in friction. It is refined in resistance. It turns avoidance into courage, weakness into grit, and trials into wisdom. That is why the Stoic steps willingly into the challenges that others avoid, because in doing so, they walk into a strength others will never know. They emerge not just tougher, but truer, not just harder, but wiser, more aligned, more alive. This is the path of resilience, to see every hardship not as a punishment, but as a forge that shapes you into who you were always meant to be. The Stoic does not act to be seen or applauded. They act because the action is just because it aligns with principle, because doing what is right is its own reward. Discipline is not a performance. It is a private pact you make with your better self. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Fix your attention on the finest and best that you have, and imagine how much you would long for these if they were not in your possession." Discipline is one of those treasures, quiet, powerful, rarely displayed, yet always felt. It is not glamour. It is not comfort. It is the hidden current of order beneath your character, pulling you forward when others drift. You rise early and no one thanks you. You train daily and no one notices. You uphold your standard when no one is watching. You keep promises to yourself without fanfare, without applause, without even speaking them aloud. That is the true test. Can you remain loyal to the path when it gives you nothing in return but more walking? Can you hold fast to your values in a world that rewards compromise more than commitment? Discipline is born not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not in victory, but in obscurity. Not in applause, but in resolve. The Stoic doesn't measure life in likes, awards, or recognition. Their compass is internal. Their reward is internal peace, integrity, self-respect. These are not loud things, but they are lasting things. They do not fade when the world overlooks you. They do not vanish when moods collapse. They are earned, not given. They are victories no one can take away. Stop waiting for validation. Stop bending your actions to be noticed. Instead, bend them toward what is right. Let your work be the validation. Let your perseverance be the evidence. Let your consistency be the signal to yourself that you've chosen a higher standard. Let the process itself be your pride. Let the doing itself be your reward. Discipline is not about being admired, it is about being aligned. Aligned with virtue, aligned with your highest standard, aligned with the version of yourself that does not fold when tested. That is the quiet power of true discipline. Do the work not because someone is watching, not because applause is waiting, but because it is who you are. Discipline is a decision, a commitment, a way of life. Let the applause be silence, and let that silence be sacred. In that quiet, you find refuge. You hear the steady sound of a mind with nothing to prove, only something to give. A mind not starving for recognition, but fulfilled by the act itself. It is in silence that truth speaks. When the noise fades, your real intentions stand exposed. And in that stillness, you hear a voice stronger than praise, the voice of the person you've chosen to become, unbothered, unwavering, unstoppable. That voice doesn't seek approval, it seeks alignment. It doesn't need a stage because it already carries integrity. It isn't desperate to be seen, it is grounded in being whole. That is when you realize you never needed applause. You only needed proof that you didn't fold. Proof that in the unseen hours, in the small, invisible sacrifices, you stood your ground and honored your principles. That kind of discipline, no spotlight can create and no spotlight can erase. It is the kind of strength that outlives noise. And it is in that silence, not in the crowd's cheers, that the Stoic finds power. Pain, too, is misunderstood. It is not the enemy. It is a messenger. It speaks a language few are willing to learn, but the Stoic listens because pain always has something to teach. It is not punishment. It is instruction. Pain is a compass, a mirror, a test. It reveals where you are weak, what you have avoided, what illusions must be stripped away. To the undisciplined, pain feels like the end. To the Stoic, pain is a signal. It says, pay attention, adjust, grow. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, if it's endurable, then endure it. If not, then stop complaining. The Stoic separates pain from panic, discomfort from distress. They don't let sensation dictate direction. They study it, decode it, and use it as fuel. Pain in the body says adapt, strengthen the weak points. Pain in the mind says reflect what thought, what resistance is creating suffering. Pain in the heart says clarify what is this ache rooted in expectation, ego loss. Each form of pain is a letter addressed to your character. Do not ignore it. Do not dramatize it. Read it, decode it, use it. Not as fate, but as feedback. That is how the disciplined turn pain into power. You cannot become who you are meant to be if you retreat at every ache. Growth is not polite, it interrupts, it confronts, it demands something from you. Pain is not just discomfort, it is the threshold where strength is born, not the strength of muscle, but of character. It humbles the ego, strips away illusions, and forces you into the present moment. It burns away the superficial false goals, fragile habits, flimsy identities, and reveals what truly matters, what you actually believe, what you're willing to fight for. Think of the strongest people you know. They did not avoid pain. They walked straight through it. And when it passed, as it always does, it left behind resilience, proof that they endured when it was easier to quit, evidence that they showed up when the effort felt pointless and the reward uncertain. That is where true identity is forged, not in ease, but in the furnace of struggle. Pain reveals your edge and dares you to step beyond it. It asks you not with words, but with trials. Who are you? And your answer isn't spoken, it's lived. Let pain guide you, not derail you. Let it sharpen your vision, not shake your resolve. Let it remind you that what is earned is kept. Use it as a mirror to examine your attachments, your assumptions, and your craving for comfort. Redefine difficulty not as an enemy, but as a teacher. True strength is not the absence of hardship, but composure within it. That is why the Stoic meets pain, not with fear, but with curiosity, even gratitude for it. Is through pain that the soul is sharpened. Because pain, like discipline, is a doorway to power. And only those willing to walk through it fully, intentionally, without flinching, will ever know what real power feels like. It will never be loud, it will never be easy, but it will be yours. And once you understand this, you begin to see discipline differently. It does not live in grand gestures or public victories, but in the small, often invisible choices you make each day. Discipline is forged in the decision to rise when it's easier to stay in bed, in the pause you take before reacting, in the choice to start even when you don't feel ready, in the commitment to keep going when no one is watching. These small moments may not make headlines, but they make character. Each one is a brick laid in silence, building the fortress of who you are becoming. Greatness is not built in bursts. It is built in layers, moment by moment, choice by choice. The Stoic knows that life is filled with invisible crossroads, and at each one, a single decision can either build your strength or erode it. That's why they train themselves to see these moments, to honor them, to act, not because others will notice, but because these decisions echo into tomorrow, shaping the person they are destined to be. The truth is simple. The person who ignores the small moments will never endure the big ones. Epictetus once said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. And that is often what discipline feels like, choosing the quiet, invisible victories when no one else is watching. It's saying no to impulse, delaying gratification, and choosing principle over pleasure. It's walking away from the comfort that weakens you, even when it seems harmless in the moment. The Stoic accepts this awkwardness. They understand that what looks futile today becomes strength tomorrow. That a moment of silence now becomes a reservoir of resilience later. That the small, unglamorous actions, putting down the phone to pick up a book, declining the sweet for the sake of health, silencing the complaint to express gratitude, cutting off excuses before they take root, are not trivial. They are sacred. These are the moments that build trust in yourself, the foundation beneath every visible success. Because no external achievement means anything if your private life is fractured and weak. Every day is filled with crossroads, the quick yes that should be a thoughtful no, the mindless scroll that could be mindful study, the delay that could be decisive action, the shortcut that could sabotage your future. Win these choices and you win everything. Discipline doesn't arrive as a gift. It is summoned one decision at a time. It's built through ordinary actions one morning of getting up when it's easier to stay in bed, one refusal to quit early, one mindful breath instead of an outburst, one redirection from distraction to purpose. These unseen choices stack together brick by brick until you've built a fortress inside yourself, an identity too strong to be shaken by a single bad day or fleeting doubt. Each small moment is a stone laid in the architecture of your character. Over time, they form a self you can trust, a self guided by an unshakable compass. And when you act not out of pressure, not out of punishment, but out of loyalty to your own standard, you discover the real power of discipline. The Stoic knows the small moment is not small at all. It is everything. Discipline is forged in the hidden arenas of life, the quiet moments no one sees. It's in these small choices where resilience is trained and alignment is tested. Because the truth is simple, if you flinch in the small moments, you will never stand firm when the real storm comes. But if you win enough of these silent battles, your life becomes something greater, built not on impulse or accident, but on purpose. This is the Stoic path, deliberate, steady, unshakable, not loud, but lasting. They do not chase applause. They chase integrity. And it is this quiet consistency that creates an extraordinary life. Discipline also thrives on boundaries. The ability to say no is not just a refusal, it is a declaration of loyalty to your higher self. It's a line that guards your energy, your values, and your growth. Every yes to something weak is a no to something strong. Every compromise in the name of comfort weakens your foundation. The Stoic guards their time because they know time spent is life spent. Energy given is attention invested, and once it's gone forever. That's why they weigh every yes carefully, knowing that one careless choice can cascade into chaos. They see no not as rejection, but as redirection, an act of fidelity to their mission, even when the world demands they drift. Saying no takes courage, especially in a culture that rewards overextension and craves approval. But the disciplined life is not lived for applause. It is lived for alignment. And alignment demands sacrifice. Sometimes that means being misunderstood. Sometimes it means walking alone. But to the Stoic, this is the price of self-respect. They learn to say no, not only to others, but to themselves, to their impulses, to their temptations, to the shortcuts that pull them away from their vision. They say no without guilt, with clarity, with conviction, because every no protects the fortress they are building. Every no strengthens their yes to discipline, to growth, to becoming who they were meant to be. Every no you say is not just resistance, it's a reinforcement of your direction. Each no is a gate closed to protect the temple you are building within. When you say no to distractions, you are saying yes to the life you are carving with your own hands. Discipline is only as strong as your ability to defend it. Say no to preserve your standards. Say no to protect your peace. Say no to guard your future. Say no to the ease that erodes your edge. Say no because your higher self depends on it. And here's the paradox. What once felt like denial begins to feel like freedom. What once felt like sacrifice transforms into devotion. The noise fades, and what remains is sacred clarity. From that clarity flows leadership, but not of others, not at first. True leadership begins in the mirror. You cannot expect loyalty from others if you abandon loyalty to yourself. Titles and positions mean nothing if your actions don't align with your values. The mirror reflects what is real, discipline or neglect, honesty or compromise. The Stoic leads themselves first. They set the standard before expecting it from anyone else. They don't wait for orders, they take initiative. They don't need surveillance, they self-correct. They create momentum where others hesitate. Their authority doesn't come from control, but from example. Self-leadership means showing up without being told, choosing what is hard without being pushed, staying honest without applause, and remaining consistent even when it's inconvenient. It means saying no to what is easy so you can say yes to what is worthy. Discipline is not about force, it's about ownership. Ownership of your choices, ownership of your path, ownership of your life. When you lead yourself with integrity, you become trustworthy, not because you demand it, but because you live it. You become a lighthouse, not by shouting, but by shining. Your life becomes a compass, a living philosophy. You don't just know the way you are, the way, and when others are lost, they won't follow your words. They'll follow your example, because you've already proven that the hardest person to lead yourself has been mastered. At its deepest level, discipline is not punishment. It is love. Love expressed as structure, as protection, as preparation for who you are becoming. It is the quiet act of caring for your future self, making sure they inherit strength instead of weakness. That is the essence of Stoicism Breath. Discipline is not a punishment. It is the scaffolding you build so your potential does not collapse under the weight of distraction. It is not born from self-hatred, but from honoring who you can become. The Stoic does not discipline themselves out of shame, but out of vision. Discipline is the quiet way of saying, I believe in something greater than comfort, greater than impulse, greater than the easy way. It is a love letter written in choices, rising early training, when it's hard, resisting temptation, reflecting instead of reacting. These are not just habits, they are affirmations that your growth matters, your future matters, you matter. Every act of discipline is a vote for the person you are becoming. Each moment of resistance is proof that you refuse to betray your higher self. These are not hollow routines. They are sacred repetitions that carve order out of chaos, tethering your life to purpose in a world that pulls in 100 directions. Like compound interest, these small acts multiply, not just building skill, but shaping character. Waking early doesn't just train your body, it trains your will. Choosing water over wine, effort over ease, reflection over reaction. These choices echo long after the moment has passed. True love is not permissive. It is principled. It does not enable weakness. It cultivates strength. It does not flatter. It fortifies. The Stoic chooses the harder right over the easier wrong, not because it's glamorous, but because it's necessary. Because they know today's comfort often becomes tomorrow's regret. Love in action always requires effort. It protects, it stands guard at the gate of what matters most, refusing to let momentary desire sabotage lasting progress. Discipline is how you keep promises to yourself, how you live in integrity, how you earn your own respect. It teaches you that your goals are sacred, that your words matter, that your life deserves effort. It becomes the armor you forge through repetition, the path you walk, not because it's easy, but because it's aligned with who you are meant to be. And in the end, the true reward of discipline is simple yet profound: to live a life you admire. To rise each day knowing you did not fold, did not drift, did not betray your higher self. You stood firm when quitting was easier. You endured when comfort called. You chose to love yourself through discipline, through effort, through the quiet decision to be your fullest self, even when no one was watching. That is the final act of power. Not applause, but alignment. Not noise, but purpose. Not perfection, but perseverance. That is the gift of discipline.